Hello friend, let us talk about the new Parliament of the India, which is a mega project developed by the Indian government.
Rather, the current administrative center, which includes the Indian Parliament, as well as the official seat of the Indian President, will be completely renovated, with total costs estimated at around $2.7 billion. And this project symbolizes a renewal process that has been in the making for a long time. Designed when India was part of the British Empire. In 1911, the British imperial government decided to move the capital of the then British Indian Empire. After India gained independence, the administrative district in Delhi became the center of a new independent nation. And it was further developed as many of the buildings had to change their function. Viceroy's house became Rashtrapati Bhavan, the official residence of the President of India. The parliament, which originally housed the Imperial Legislative Council, is now used to house both chambers of India's democratically elected parliament. Meanwhile, the population of the city increased, and there was immense development pressure on this area. New office buildings were constructed, but there was a lack of vision of how this area should be developed. Today, the Central Vista is certainly a landmark. On January 26th, the Republic Day Parade takes place. However, since many of the buildings are now being used for a different purpose than originally intended, this administrative center are located outside of Central Vista. Therefore, the Indian government has decided to redevelop the entire area. Under the direction of Indian architect Bimal Patel, the architecture firm HCP designed what is supposed to be the future of Central Vista. The Parliament building is clearly too small for today's requirements of India's democracy, and it is in a structurally desolate state. Therefore, a completely new building will be created, right next to the old Parliament. While the old Parliament is circular, this new Parliament is in triangular shape. Nevertheless, it references many of the ideas present in the current Parliament's design. Today's Parliament building consists of 3 semicircles that face each other. They house the 2 chambers of Parliament as well as a library. In the middle, there is a common hall from which you can navigate to the different rooms. And in between these halls, there are various courtyards. The whole thing is surrounded by a circle that provides space for offices. In a very similar way, the new Parliament will also have office space facing outside. Inside, however, the space is used significantly more effectively by reducing the courtyard area. The 2 chambers of Parliament can therefore be built much larger in order to meet today's requirements. As already mentioned, the Secretariat buildings are not sufficient for all the different ministries, and many of the buildings that currently stretch along the Rajpath and house additional offices are in poor structural condition. These buildings will therefore be demolished to make way for a massive new Central Secretariat. This should unite all ministries of the Indian government in one place. These large buildings will each have a courtyard in the middle, which will serve as a meeting and relaxation space. In order to make commuting to work easier, the architects have planned underground electric people movers that stop at every office building. Furthermore, a central conference center is being built, in which larger events can be held. It will have various auditoriums, as well as a number of conference and seminar rooms. The National Archive building is also located along Rajpath. This currently comprises an old building by Lutens from the imperial period, as well as a newer building that was added later. As part of the current redevelopment, The old building is to be renovated, but otherwise retains its function, while the newer building will be demolished and replaced. Also currently located along Rajpath is the Indira Gandhi National Center for the Arts, a major government-funded cultural institution in the country. The center will have to move, as the current buildings will be demolished to make way for the new Central Secretariat. A new building for the institute is to be built on the India Gate Circle. Another building that needs to make way for the new Central Secretariat is the National Museum. But since all ministries are now united in this Central Secretariat, the current Secretariat building loses its function. The plan is therefore to relocate the National Museum to these two much larger buildings. The new National Museum will then have 3 times as much space as it currently does. And architect Patel, who oversees the redevelopment, also considers this a symbolic change that reflects the power of the people in a democratic nation. The British built the old Secretariat on an elevation, with the government buildings located on Raisina Hill. But with the centrally located is the seat of the president, the highest ranking office in the nation. To the president's sides there will be the seat of the vice president on one hand and the seat of the prime minister on the other hand, who, although having the most political power, comes in third in the nation's ceremonial hierarchy. Adjacent to this residence is the new office of the Prime Minister, which is then located directly opposite the old and new parliament. Finally, the Rajpath, the central main axis and its parks, will be fundamentally overhauled. New vegetation will be planted, facilities will be completely renewed, and pedestrian underpasses will improve the experience for visitors. The Central Vista redevelopment project is controversial in India, and there is criticism from many different sides.
Now, that is to say that I think, as non-residents of Delhi, I really don't think you get the space.
You're taking away money from the middle class. You're not giving money to the poor people, and you're spreading it, spending it on your Central Vista.
Most of your presentation talked about making incremental improvements to status quos, that there was no larger ambition.
Questions regarding the project's ambitions are commonly discussed in India. It is a challenging question, especially since the architects were faced with the difficult task of renovating an already existing landmark.
इसी के साथ आज की मजदूरी यहीं खत्म करते हैं। अगर तुम्हें वीडियो पसंद आई तो लाइक मारो यार।